I was about 6 or 7 years old when my family told me that my uncle was coming over for dinner soon. This was odd since I knew that my dad and his brother didn't get along very well, and we never really saw him much growing up. Later in life, I was told that my dad and his brother didn't get along because my uncle had decided to go down a different and darker path than his siblings. He was regularly dabbling in mysticism, cults, tarot cards, Ouija boards, and anything paranormal related. Although he did this mainly in his youth, it seemed he had given it up in his adult life. Still, my family had decided to keep their distance. I don't remember much from the day he visited. Nothing really remarkable happened when we were spending time as a family. I do remember my uncle making a few comments that made my parents uncomfortable, so they tried to cut the day short. That evening, my sister had already passed out and was put to bed. She was about 3 at the time. I remember my mom telling me it's time for me to get to bed as well since I had school the next day. Just before I went into my room, I turned to look down the long hallway and saw my uncle and dad sitting at the table, talking quietly. My room was always fun to be in. My parents both had good jobs and liked to buy my sister and I toys when they could. The most recent toy I got at the time was a My Buddy doll. I had seen it on a commercial and constantly begged for one until I came home from school one day and found it in my room, sitting in a small rocking chair my grandma had given me. From that day forward, that was Buddy's chair. Whenever I was done playing with him, he sat in that chair. I climbed into bed and fell asleep pretty quickly. I didn't have any nightmares and didn't wake up in a jolt and a cold sweat or anything like that. Instead, I remember slowly waking up after hearing a small noise in my room. It was like my sister was trying to sneak in and take a toy without waking me up. It was so dark in my room, I could hardly see anything. My door was only slightly open and I could see a faint light coming in from down the hallway. As my eyes started to become adjusted to the light, I looked around the room and then heard the rocking chair moving back and forth, with Buddy still sitting in it. At first I thought my sister was in the room hiding, so I said out loud, "You can't hide, I know you're in here." As I said that, I looked at my Buddy toy and started feeling uneasy. A few seconds went by that felt like minutes of awkward silence when the rocking chair stopped moving abruptly, and my Buddy doll turned its head and looked right at me. Its eyes started glowing with a faint red light inside them, and I froze up in fear. Somehow I forced myself to move and got up and ran crying out of my room. As I left my room, I saw my dad and uncle still sitting at the table, and my uncle was laughing with a card in his hand. I was screaming at them, saying, "Help me, it's going to get me." They both stood, and my dad picked me up. My mom came rushing out of her room and asked what was going on. I looked at her and said that Buddy was going to get me. Then I told them that it looked at me and had red eyes. They both came straight into my room and turned on the light. The doll was sitting in the rocking chair, not moving an inch, and its eyes looked completely normal. My mom turned and said, "You were just having a bad dream. But if you're scared, you can sleep with me tonight." I was still crying and said that I wanted to stay with her. She took me into her room and I fell asleep clutching her arm. Before my mom and I walked away, I remember my dad looking at my uncle and looking very angry. I was confused because I thought he was going to be mad at me for getting out of bed. As they were walking down the hallway, I heard my dad tell my uncle that it was time for him to leave. That small part always stuck out as a little odd. When I was older, I brought that night up to my parents and asked why he had to leave after I came out of my room. My dad looked uncomfortable. Then he told me what happened. He said his brother was talking about his recent experience with tarot cards and how he was able to see things at times and make things happen. While they were sitting at the table, he took those cards out of his pocket and started placing them on the table. This made my dad extremely angry because he raised my family in a Christian home and viewed those things as very evil. He started telling him to stop and that he had to leave. Then, my uncle took out a card and started laughing. My dad asked what was so funny. My uncle stared at the card and said, "This means so much more now than it did before." He kept laughing in a very weird, creepy way, and at that moment I came running down the hallway crying, saying, "Help me, it's going to get me." My dad said that it was one of the scariest and creepiest nights he had. He said that he always felt bad about whatever his brother might have been saying or doing that could have been affecting me as well, an innocent kid sleeping at night in a safe room. As the years passed, I never got to know my uncle, and he seemed okay with staying away. To this day, I still do not know much about him, and haven't heard from him in years. I don't think I will ever forget that night, and hope I never have an encounter like that again. Thanks for listening to my very first YouTube video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. I'm encouraging any and all feedback. Also, this channel is mainly going to be creepy readings, mysteries, conspiracy theories, that kind of thing. So if you have a story that you want me to read or talk about, please feel free to send me an email with the info. Just make sure to give me the permission to use a story if it's a personal one. Remember to subscribe and share if you like it. If not, that's cool too. I'm glad you were here for the very first one. Thanks, and look forward to the next video.